So this is my criticism towards ENTPs. Now, no actual hate or anything like that, but if I were to hypothetically talk shit if I must, then here you shall find it. Now, okay, ENTPs, there's probably more we have in common than I'd like to admit. See, I myself am an INTP, but like, okay, bro. Now, I'm as NE as the next guy, but I know you guys want to brag about how, oh yeah, you have the dominant NE, so you just see things maybe slightly more broad than an INTP apparently. Okay, maybe not all of you think that, but I've seen some of you say that, and I just want to like address that like thing like overall. I think the stereotype of like ENTPs being this like pompous debater, yeah, okay, it's a stereotype, but I don't think it's entirely unfounded either. The reason why this probably comes to the case is because, okay, most people in the world are SI DOMs, apparently. So, with that being said, they would have inferior NE. So, I mean, before it was ISFJ, but I hear the most common type now is apparently ISTJ. Well, anyway, regardless, yes, SI DOM, so therefore they have inferior NE. Now, here's the thing about that. I imagine that the mistakes a lot of NE inferior people have is that maybe they're not quick to notice things like fallacies or moving the goalposts. Because, okay, for one thing, I have an ISTJ dad, so I definitely know what that's like. They easily get overwhelmed at the thought of like new ideas. They feel unsafe, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they want to get away. Maybe they, you know, essentially want to stick their fingers in their ears and like not really listen. And again, that's just a specific sort of like situation. I'm not saying people with high SI can't improve on any. I'm not saying that at all, just to be clear. But like, okay, because they're like naturally used to doing things that the way that in which they prefer it, because you know, SI is all about like familiarity and maintaining already lived experiences for the self. I imagine when a lot of ENTPs speak to like a lot of people, regardless of whether they're like fallacious or not, they feel great about it. And here comes in line, especially with the, you know, third slot FE. They're great at like provoking reactions and like all that kind of stuff because a lot of people are not used to such strong NE. And yeah, the combination of FE within like the third slot makes for a person that's essentially, I don't know, I guess like a jokester or somebody that says like the wacky things. And I imagine ENTPs literally eat it up because you guys either get good reactions, people think you're funny, people think you're, I don't know, creative, or like you make a lot of people go, I've never really thought about it like that before. Sure, but also, like, you know, that being said, you might also get negative reactions. People think you're hella annoying. People think that, oh, you needlessly play devil's advocate, yada, yada, yada. So I feel like a lot of these experiences that ENTPs have ends up, like, you know, putting this thing where they believe they're, like, hella fucking smart and, like, hella fucking, like, arrogant for, like, no reason. And sure, maybe you are. I don't know. I don't really know you. I'm speaking in general terms here. But like, okay, here's the thing. I feel like when they actually come across an INTP, like we're actually good at like seeing through their ruse because I really see this as like the key distinct difference between us. And you're gonna say, no shit. Well, like, okay, dominant TI versus like dominant NE. I've noticed that when you talk to, I guess, like a lot of like annoying ENTPs, they think their same tactic that typically works on most people, typically works on SI DOMs, is gonna work, let's say, for like an INTP. Or I've noticed that, like, okay, when typically when an ENTP talks to an INTP, and INTPs, you know what I'm talking about for like, I bet, like, for sure. A lot of them are gonna try their best to like, you know, compensate because they realize that they have to like work a little harder. And now here's the thing. Perhaps it's just a difference in perspective, so nobody's really wrong here. It's just, I don't know, like a way about like, you know, going about things is that like, see, here's the thing. ENTPs kind of baffle me in terms of like how they act because they seem to have this mindset because of their dominant NE where they think that gathering as much information as possible is, let's say, you know, gaining more and more knowledge. And yes, to an extent, sure, it can be. You can always broaden your horizons in terms of like, okay, you know, information and like all that stuff. But like, compared to somebody like me, like a TI dom, I don't need different perspectives to feel like, let's say, I'm actually, accomplishing like a sense of smartness, if I have to like put it like in that sense. I'm fine with sticking to a particular thing and diving off because like I have more like secondary NE until I can like figure this out. And this is why a lot of TI dumps in general often appear detached, because let's say we can fully admit that if something doesn't have any meaning, oh shit, boom, there goes nihilism, which a lot of INTPs are, I don't want to say commonly known for, but I will say that perhaps out of like most types, we're most often associated with like nihilistic points of view. And okay, back again with like ENTPs, I see that they're me, but they're not really me. So it annoys me in the sense that like I do relate to them, but also in the same way I don't like how they go about things. But I still can kind of see their point of view. It's just, let's say, taking the same like vehicle, but just going in different directions. Like we might as well like, okay, regardless of like who's driving, the passenger seat broke off and the other side of the car is like going somewhere else. And like here's what I mean by that. Because like sure, perhaps there are nihilistic ENTPs, yeah, sure, and not all INTPs are like nihilistic, but like ENTPs baffle the fuck out of me. And even as an INTP, I'm also sure that I can perhaps baffle the fuck out of like other people. But see, here's the thing. Because, I mentioned that like ENTPs like to gather information, and at least from my perception, it looks like that's how they feel smart. That's how they feel like they're improving. For me, as a more like TI dominant person, I can't let something go. It's not just the process of finding information, whereas like I feel complete and I can just like go out and about and like stuff like that. And the reason why I think this is for ENTPs is because they have like lower SI. So they tend to get bored with like a specific idea, let's say like real quick. So then they'll get, rid of it and then like move to something else. And then in my point of view, they delusionally think that just because you're still focused on this like idea that you haven't actually wrapped up, is that like, oh my gosh, you're the one that's like too close-minded. But at least from like my point of view, I would say no, you just gave up and found something else because you're telling yourself that, oh my gosh, that is a wide range of like intelligence, because I gave up on this and now I'm going through this because like, oh my gosh, it's just dumb in any blah 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 blah, going like like 1,000 miles per hour, 1,000,000 miles per hour, blah blah blah, things like that. And I'm also pretty strong with NE, obviously, even though it's like a secondary thing. So it actually hurts me to like be saying this, but like, okay, see, therein lies the difference though, because I think because I'm like higher in the TI, this is where I can easily get to like the nihilistic perspective, or why, let's say, a lot of ENTPs might think INTPs are, more close-minded or blah, 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 or like, they don't have as more range. And yeah, I guess it's technically true. Well, I don't want to say we have like less range. Like my thing is that I just feel like we deal with the range of like NE in a different way. So I think what a lot of INTPs do, or maybe like more so like me in this case, like I can stick to like a specific sort of like idea and I'll try to, think it over, blah, 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 over and over again, and I might not even find something. But like, despite that, my TI will seal a conclusion. And that's why nihilism is easily here. That's why having such strong TI is regarded as like, stereotypically being detached, I guess. Because I can admit, let's say, that like, okay, there are things that like we perhaps like don't know. Because it's like, it's weird having TI first and like NE second, because it's like, okay, you want to seal something, but then you're also capable of seeing so much ambiguity and like different points of view that's like, okay, we'll either spend our time continuously pondering that thing, because like no matter how many ideas we go through, I think in comparison to like INTPs, we can focus on a particular idea if we like, we want to focus about something, or if like in a discussion, no matter how far we go, we'll find a way to like circle back. But I feel like ENTPs sort of kind of just want to act as if like they're more so a generator of ideas rather than expanding something. So then this is where like the break off happens, because like it's weird, because like it seems like a lot of ENTPs don't want to commit to like specific ideas. And again, I'm talking about like specific situations. I'm not saying that just because you're an ENTP you can't like make up your mind, but like, see, but like here's the thing though, that's where I like see where like the inferior SI takes place. Whereas like because I have like SI like slightly higher, I cherish my past experiences in a way, in a sense, where it's like, okay, well, I don't know if cherished is the word, but it's like I more so learn from it compared to like ENTPs, at least like much more easily, because the things that I've gone through, I try to find like more so patterns for things, like more so like, yeah, like what tends to like repeat. But like for an ENTP, or maybe we can just say like an any dom in general, they easily, are like bored with things like that, and it gets like super dry. So like again, like, yeah, oh yeah, back to it. It's like, yeah, so sure, I can admit the nihilism. Like at one point, you can only think about something, I guess, to like a certain point where you suddenly hit a brick wall, and then I guess you just like reach a point of like epistemological nihilism. So yeah, I'm fine with like admitting that. Like I only know that I know nothing. And sure, that might sound even paradoxical to like a lot of people, because I'm not saying that neither like INTPs can't, because I think, okay, NTPs in general are most likely just paradoxical to like a lot of like humans, other types, you know, in general. But like, okay, back again to like what I'm saying. Okay, so sure, I can reach that nihilistic state and I can say I only know that I know nothing, and then ENTPs will still, let's say, hypothetically feel compelled to, let's say, like challenge that notion. So I don't really understand like what they're trying to do, what you guys are like trying to do, because it's more like, okay, you don't want to be, I guess, like limited to like a particular sort of like idea. Like you want to like, find something more, but in a way you act as though you don't actually care to find something. And this is why it frustrates me. Well, not necessarily about you guys, but I guess like what frustrates me about like just like the world in general, because like I can then accept why there's such a thing as like like nihilism, for example, but then a lot of like ENTPs or like a lot of like any DOMs will see it as like a crippling thing to their soul, because yes, kind of like what I mentioned, nihilism can hypothetically be a brick wall. But I think because you have, for example, let's say like me, like I have like TI and like any together, it can, really create that point where it's just like I'm, let's say, capable of entertaining like so many ideas. But just because I can entertain these ideas, that doesn't mean I have like a definitive sort of like conclusion for something. But like ENTPs go about things like they don't want to find a definitive conclusion, while exploring ideas in a mindset thinking that they will define they will find definitive conclusions. So yeah, I just find that kind of strange, I guess. And it's like, as an INTP, I'm like essentially saying like, okay, like there are nihilistic ENTPs, I would imagine, but like to like some of them that like aren't, or it's like they won't commit to as much. I'm just like, bro, just bite the bullet. Yeah, you're finding so many points of views, but just like me, you don't actually know anything. You understand that you only know that you know nothing. So I guess we're saying the same thing, just in like slightly different alternative ways. But like, okay, fine, sure, maybe it's like my bias, I guess. Like, okay, like as an INTP though, I'm in a way like, yeah, because of said bias, I just think that like the way we do it simply makes more sense than like what you ENTPs are doing. But yeah, all right, food for thought.